All right. Eileen.
I start? Did you do this on purpose?
No, Dan is.
No, it's Eileen.
Is it me?
Yeah, they just asked me the question about it.
It's okay, Danny. All right, so we're going to go to Eileen. Correct? Is that right?
Yes.
All
Okay.
right, we won't fire you this time.
You can get fired twice in one day, bud.
Fire from your
No
non-paid
community
job.
service for you.
Yeah, no community service.
Those hours don't count.
Exactly, they don't count. That was good. Okay. What factors would you consider in creating procedure as it pertains to the evaluation of administrative staff in the district?
Okay, say that again.
What factors would you consider in creating procedure as it pertains to the evaluation of administrative staff in the district?
What procedures, wow, that was a long one, okay. If I understand it correctly, they want to know what procedures I would create to evaluate administrators.
To evaluate?
If I'm hearing it correctly.
Yes, it seems, what procedures would you like to see in place in
To
an effort to
evaluate.
evaluate administrators in our district?
What procedures would well, I don't know what the procedures are right now, because as I said, no procedures are written down. So if you ask for a procedure, you'll never find it. So how would I evaluate a procedure that's not there? I don't know. We'd have to start from scratch, because there are no procedures. I'm sure they're written somewhere. I'm sure the times that I foiled them, they should have sent them to me, and maybe they just couldn't find them. But there are no procedures. I keep hearing policy is different from procedure, is different from regulation. Regulation is actually written down, but procedure I've never gotten a copy of. So I don't know what the procedures are to change them. That's the bottom line.
Mr. Hochstein, if you were creating procedure as it pertains to evaluating an administrator, what would you put into place?
I would have to say what Eileen had said, to be honest with you. I'm not familiar with the procedures, so I really couldn't answer your question honestly.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferrioli.
I think the biggest thing that you'd want to make sure is in place with any administrator, and having, dealt with administrators for 19 years, is communication. I think that's the biggest key, because if their expectations are not clear to the teachers, then that's going to be a problem going down the road. So that's a big part of what they do. They have to be clear with their educators, so that's part of evaluating them. It's the superintendent's job to look at all the other administrators and find out what it is they're doing, how they're communicating their procedures, I hate that word, but
Yeah, because we don't have any.
or their expectations is probably a better word, how they're communicating their expectations to their staff. So I would say that definitely communication, I'd like to see that in place, but you need to have an evaluation system. I do not believe that evaluation system should be tied to test scores, should not be affecting the building. It is the expert's job at the local level to find out whether or not that person is doing their job for our kids. It's not a test, it's not an evaluation that's going to say, because it doesn't check certain boxes. If our administrative staff is in the building and they are looking at these people and they're seeing how they interact with the rest of the staff, the children, the parents, and everybody else, it's very easy to tell who is a successful administrator and who is not.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Washoe?
I'd want to know her reputation amongst her peers and how she gets along with the people, or he gets along, who's ever in that position. So I would talk to the peers and see what you thought of the person that we're looking at. The community, I guess it's communication skills. I guess if they were, how I would judge them and see if they were point on. If she's looking down and she's not looking at me, I kind of think you're hiding something. If you get loud, I think sometimes if you get loud, sometimes you're trying to overpower somebody. So I would look at different quality, things like that, and see what she brings to the table, and that's what I would judge it on, me personally.
Okay. Mrs. Panico. I know. We're starting with Rob. Dan, we have
It's a third.
It's all right,
Ready
we're
to
only
start
gonna
over?
do 2 more, so we're
We're gonna
good.
start taking community
Dan
service
had
out.
4 donuts, so it makes. Dan had 4 donuts. I'm sorry. Are you ready?
You can't have negative though. You can't have
You're looking
negative.
at the jelly donut last
You
night.
can't have negative community service out, so you're good.
You're good. All right, Mr. Hochstein, correct? All right, so are you ready? Do you believe school building leaders, principals, should have autonomy to run their own building?
Well, I know that, when you hire a principal, you hire them for a specific building. They should be aware of what they need to do in that building. They should be aware of the faculty and the staff and how that building operates. I think they should have run of their building to a point. They have to answer to the administrator, and they have to answer to the board.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Ferrioli?
Autonomy, no. I do believe that they should have control of certain things that are specific to their building and their children and their population. But that being said, it's really important that we have a certain set of expectations in across the district at the elementary level, so that all the principals are doing certain things. There's no reason why a child that's going to Idlehour or a child that's going to Cherokee or whatever is getting a different education because the principal decides that this isn't the way they want to run their building. That's not correct. So autonomy, no, it's not, not something that I believe in as far as full. It's really important, though, that they also have expectations and meet with the directors. They do that regularly. They have a SAC meeting where they meet with all the directors, all the principals, so that they can all be on the same page as much as possible. The problem then goes back to the building trying to implement that, and sometimes that doesn't happen. And sometimes it gets blamed on, well, that's something that needs to be tightened up. We need to have consistency across the district. The curriculum that's put in place, because certain people say, well, I don't want to do this, should not be happening. The children should be getting a consistent education across the district. And so I guess that would lead me to know they shouldn't have full autonomy.
Excellent, thank you, sir. Mr. Warshaw?
Full autonomy meaning full control?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely not.
And independence?
Okay. No, you know what? It's too much of a responsibility for one person to have. And you give them too much control of taking over a building and being able to have too much leeway to do what they want. It's a community, it's the Board of Education trickling down, and it should be something that it's a group effort. They should be able to put things in perspective and do it the way they want with people overseeing it and making sure it's correct and it fits the way we want things to be run. So full, definitely not.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico?
I agree, that you cannot have full autonomy in a building. Otherwise, why would you need a Board of Education at all? So, as a Board of Education, you get your directive from the community. The Board of Education then gives that directive to the superintendent. The superintendent, her job is to get it to all the schools, and they have to implement it. As Nick said, you have to implement it evenly throughout the district. The north side can't have less programs than the south side. RMS can't be different from OBMS. Are there different teachers? Yes. Are there different styles? Yes. But the actual core curriculum, they all have to be the same. We can't teach one school different from another school and have some kids learn some better things here, but not on this side of the tracks. It just can't, it won't work that way. So I'm in agreement with all three of the gentlemen.
Thank you. Mr. Ferrioli? One of the most important things about hiring people is character. Identify your strength and your weakness, your greatest strength, your greatest weakness.
Good questions. That was a good one.
My greatest strength is probably to come up with ideas and try to solve problems. I'm always trying to figure out a way to make things better for other people. It seems to be what I do. Sometimes, unfortunately, that seems to be my greatest weakness as well, because I get myself in situations where, you get passionate about something, and then you get excited, and sometimes you open your mouth a little too much, so that's probably, my greatest weakness is probably that I am a very passionate person, and I wear my heart on my sleeve, and when sometimes I get a little vocal when I'm passionate about something. So I think those would be my greatest weaknesses and my greatest strengths.
There's a second part to this.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't know.
No, I actually do like this question.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I think it's important for all of us to reflect, especially for these guys right here. So identify a moment when you're most proud of yourself, and then identify a moment when you weren't proud of yourself, and how you reflected and changed or grew from that.
Okay. Well, I can start out with the second part, how I wasn't most proud. It's definitely, some of the moments where I got very vocal and was, screaming at board meetings at, I guess it would be specifically Mr. Felicio and Mr. Lindell, because I allowed them to bait me into getting excited and getting passionate. I think, though, that I've learned from that. If you look at the board meetings over the past year or so, I think you can truly identify a difference in my character, and what I learned from that was it's just not an appropriate thing, that I need to be less vocal and being more in control. So that, if nothing else, in 3 years, I can honestly say, and I've said this to my wife and many other people, if that's the only thing I learned in 3 years of being on the board, then I'm a better person. So that's where I sit. What was the other part of that?
Your proudest moment
My proudest
Over-
moment.
the course of your lifetime.
My proudest moment is watching it was going to be, I think, every year when I watch the teachers that have come along, we've seen them grow, get tenure, and know that they are, contributing to our community and they are making a difference for our kids. So I don't have a proudest moment for myself, but I think all the things that we've put in place, when I see those things go into action and I see those things helping our kids, those are my proudest moments.
Excellent, thank you, sir. Mr. Warshaw, greatest strength and weakness.
Strength, my heart. I just feel like I wear it right on my sleeve. It's always going to be there. So my heart's my greatest strength. My weakness is probably my knowledge. I need to be more educated a little bit more and probably catch up a little bit on times. Sometimes I'm my own little shell. So that's one of my weaknesses.
Can you identify for us a moment when you were most proud of yourself, and also a moment when you were most disappointed, and how you reflected and grew from that?
Proud of myself was a moment when a player that I coached at one time had a great loss in his life, and he was having difficulty dealing with it, and I took him on the side, and I cried with him, and I told him it was okay.
You want some more? You want me to make
No, I'm good, I'm good. I told him it was okay. And that life is about getting back up. And we're gonna find a way to get back up. And I told him I'd help him. And I would say, I'm here for you. Call me 10 years from now, whatever you need to do. And he called me. And it's just a great feeling. It's just, going through life, everybody's got their battles. And one's worse than another. I'm just telling you what I went through with that. It was just a great moment. I felt proud. So it's just a situation I felt proud about. Worst moment, it was probably when I started coaching years ago, and I remember yelling, and I was yelling at these kids, and I got so used to them loving me no matter what I did. Yell, scream, went around jumping. They were just like, Coach Warshaw's nuts, he's great. One time I actually felt like I hurt somebody, and I felt terrible because I yelled at him and he didn't understand that I was yelling for him. And I usually explain to the children that I coach, that I am yelling for you and I am pushing you to get the most out of you. So that was very important that they understood that, and I didn't let them understand that, so I explained that to them. So it was important to me. I went home that night, I actually didn't sleep, because I said, geez, I saw his face, and I really saw his face, and I said, man, I gotta make sure. I went the next day, as soon as I saw him practice, I called him over. I'm not gonna say a name. I said, listen, I gotta apologize to you. I want you to understand something. I think you misunderstood when I was yelling at you. It wasn't that me yelling at you, man. Coach loves you. And when I yell at you, it's just to push you and motivate you. And you know what? Sometimes you can't do something. You can't do it, it's okay. Life goes on. I was just trying to get more out of you. So I just told him, and that was basically it.
Yes.
But I felt terrible.
Mrs. Panico.
I learned from it.
Oh, thanks. Mrs. Panico, your greatest strength, greatest weakness.
Okay. So my greatest strengths are my integrity, my morality, and my ethics. I have sometimes they're too high. But I believe in my morality and my ethics. If I say something, I do it. If I find something that's wrong, I have to fix it. I think those are my greatest strengths. I really believe that we have to be ethical and we have to be moral. My weakness, I'm loud and I'm obnoxious as hell. When I want something done, I am loud and I am obnoxious. I fully and freely admit that. I am. You've seen me tonight, I'm loud, I don't need a microphone. That could be a weakness too, I'm a little too honest about that. What was the second part of the question?
So a moment when you were most proud of yourself, and a moment when you were most disappointed, and what you did after careful reflection to grow.
So my proudest moment is when I volunteer and I see kids smile. I see that I've made a difference in someone's life. It's not exactly altruistic, because I'm actually doing that for myself instead of for the person that I'm volunteering for, but it does make me feel good to make a difference in someone else's life. So that's my proudest moment. My worst moment is when I make an error and I don't have a chance to apologize. I like to be able to apologize for my mistakes, and when I don't get that chance, it bothers me. It'll keep me up at night. There's been times here with the board that I could have apologized or said something in a different way, and because of the relationship that the board, it's been a little contentious, there hasn't been an opportunity to be able to speak to that person as a person instead of as a sparring partner, really. So that's one of my worst moments.
Thank you. Mr. Hotstein, greatest strength, weakness.
One of my greatest strengths is my honesty. I'm a very moral person. I try and communicate well. And I think those are really my strengths.
And weakness?
My kids. We've gone through some good times and some bad times. During the bad times, I felt pretty useless. So that was my weakness.
Okay. And do you have a moment that you can identify when you were most proud of yourself and a behavior, and then a moment when you were most disappointed and what you did to grow from that?
One of the most important times of my life was when I received the position of Director of Facilities for Connecticut, because I worked my way up from being a maintenance mechanic to being the Director of Facilities. When I did get that position, I was pretty proud of it.
That's good. And a moment when you were most disappointed in something you did and what you did to reflect and grow from that.
Well, I've had issues with, when I was working, with employees. There were some employees that at some point, at some time, I felt that I didn't treat them right. I did try to apologize about it, but I think that's one of my lowest times. It really bothered me.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw.
Why did you start that one, Nick? Just gotta say it.
What is the greatest attribute you can bring to the Board of Education as a trustee?
I'm gonna make myself available to the public, to you guys. That's probably my greatest aspect, in that I care a lot. So when you say greatest aspect, you're looking for one, so I guess the caring part is the most important. I care, and I will listen, and I'll listen, because I know as old as I'm getting, I'm still learning. Every single day I wake up. So I gotta listen to learn, and that's the only way I'm gonna keep learning, by listening. And you know, I guess that's important to me, is that I listen and I learn.
Thank you. Mrs. Panico.
Repeat the question.
What is the greatest attribute you can bring to the Board of Education as a trustee?
My knowledge and my ability to research something that I don't know. I will dig my teeth into something until I know everything about it and until we can fix it. or go forward, or make it better, or improve it. I believe change all the time, so that's probably my biggest asset, plus I know the numbers.
Thank you. Mr. Hawks?
I think my biggest asset would be as a board member, as a starting board member. The knowledge that I have working for the district for 23 years. I know the workings of the district. There are plenty of things that I have to learn, being out for a little bit, but I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to have a transparent seat.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferrioli?
No question, there's a lot of things I can think of, but the biggest thing would be my educational background. With my educational background, I've been able to not only be in a classroom, but work with my union, work with other groups within the, in the district. I've sat on committees for hiring. I have worked with my principal with fundraising. So there's so many things that I do in my school on a daily basis that apply here in Connecticut that I now have relative ideas of what's going on and I can help. As an educator, you're a problem solver. So, that's a huge part of what I do every day, and I know I've brought that to the board over the last 3 years. So definitely my educational experience would play it has played a huge part for the last 3 years. That experience, along with what I gained the last 3 years, would be my biggest attribute.
Thank you, sir. Now, we had agreed prior to coming back that we would only ask 3 questions. There are 10 more questions in my hand. However, we should go into closing statements.
Yeah.
I would strongly suggest if you're a candidate who had a question and you want to speak, or excuse me, if you're a member of the audience who has a question for any of the candidates, you could ask them, I'm sure on the way out, or I'm sure you'll have time to speak to them before the election. But with your permission, if we could go into closing statements, other than that, I would take the questions, whatever you tell me to do.
Nope, I'm ready for closing.
You feel good?
Are you guys ready for closing?
All those in favor of closing, clap.
All right, closing it is.
Okay, are we ready?
Here in the phone.
That's right.
And it's working,
Yes.
it's definitely working.
Ready?
Do I start the closing?
I believe you do, right?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We're going backwards?
Yep.
All right. So, as you know, I'm Eileen Panico. I bring a lot to the table. I've been to more board meetings than all of these gentlemen combined. I tape them all. I make sure that I learn what's going on. I ask a lot of questions. I ask more questions about the consent agenda than the board members do at times. Now, they may ask in a different part of the session, but in open session, where it's supposed to be discussed, that's where I ask all the questions. The questions that I don't have time for, because they only give us 3 minutes, I ask them on a Google Doc and I make sure that I get those answers. I follow up. I do everything for the community. If somebody has a problem, and I've had many people call me up and I'm not even on the board, and they ask me for their help, I'll go to that for them at the Board of Ed. I have no problem doing that. I bring a lot of passion to the position. I think I have the knowledge and the background. I have an accounting background for over 25 years. And again, I have the time. I'm home, I'm around, this is my social life. I am a full-time volunteer. So I'm a masochist, I'd like to do this, and I hope that you just get out and vote, whether you choose me or not. We have 2 votes, you have some great candidates, just get out there and vote. Thank you.
We're gonna go this way.
Mr. Warshaw.
I feel I bring respect, integrity, compromise. I learned at an early age how fragile life is, and I found a way to move forward and be a positive influence. I'm thankful for the love that I've gotten here from Connecticut to children. And I'm also thankful for the 17 years that I've coached. I want the community to know that I'm passionate about assisting the children of Connecticut in learning and growing. I am excited about the prospect of becoming a board member and being able to serve the community where I choose to live. I promise the community to work hard, listen to all stakeholders, respect everybody, make the best educational decision that I can. I believe in transparency, honesty, driven by respect to all members of our community and those that educate the children. I'm a very thankful man. I wake up every morning and I say thank you. I go to bed and say thank you. So I bring a lot of gratefulness. I'm very grateful for everything I have in my life. And I think that's important to bring to a table and bring unity. I think I bring unity. And I find a way to get people to work together. And I will continue to do that, because if you work together, you can do amazing things in this world. And you have support. Life is just so much better when you're loved and you got people caring and doing the same thing. You're even happier. Just great. And, you know, it's just a beautiful thing, and that's what I bring.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferrioli.
Okay, my last chance. I tell you a little story how I got here. I was 16 years old, and I was coaching baseball for some kids that had moved in across the street from my parents' house. And the gentleman who was the vice president of Hot Dog Little League had a brain tumor. I was down at the field so much helping out, the president asked me, "Do you want to be the vice president?" I went, "What?" And little did I know, they all kind of pushed me into that, and I became a public servant. I've been a public servant ever since. It's kind of what I do. It's why I went into education. It's why I wanted to work with kids. When you get that feeling of giving back and helping other people, it's a really great feeling, and it's an important thing. I've done it since I was 16 years old. Doing it for adults is great, but when you do it for kids, it's an even better feeling. I come from a family of educators. My wife's an educator. My mom's, both of her brothers were educators. So I grew up in that environment of wanting to do all that things to help children. I hope that you go out and vote for me. That would be a great pleasure to me. I really appreciate the fact that I've been able to work with your children for the last 3 years, or some of your grandchildren possibly, or anybody that you know in the community. I'd love to continue what we started. Some of the programs that we have in place I think are amazing for Connecticut moving forward, so I'd really like to see them through. Most important though, whether you're going to vote for any one of us up here, please go vote for the budget, because it's a 0% tax levy increase. And I know it's not, doesn't mean the budget didn't increase. The budget did increase. We got some state aid. We took some money from some of the fund balances to pay for the security door initiative that's in there. But to your tax dollar, you are not going to pay an extra tax dollar for school taxes this coming year. It took me 3 years to get that pushed through. It was very difficult. It was one of the things I liked in the beginning of when I got on. I want to try and move towards that. We moved close. 2 years ago, we got a 0.8. Then we had to go back to a 1.26 because we had, some issues we need to pay for some things. We're there. We got it. So please go vote for the budget, because that's the most important thing, so don't take things away from the kids. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hochstein.
I just wanted to say that I believe in honesty, transparency, and communication. I don't believe that politics belongs in the boardroom. I believe all sides have an issue, and they should be heard before any decisions are made. And finally, I believe that the board must work together for the betterment of the students, the faculty, staff, and the community.
Thank you, sir. And now, everybody, thank you for coming. If I did not get to your question, I apologize. I am handed cards in a stack, and they categorize them, and I follow through with what